Real quick, before getting into today's episode, I wanted everybody to know whether you're watching the video, whether you're listening to this in podcast form. I have Tone Pucks on, and we're recapping the Jacksonville game. And while doing so, roughly around 12 minutes or so into this episode, Tone was making a point, and literally at the very end of the sentence, long story short, the wind got so bad here while we recorded this in West Seneca, New York, that the power actually went out. So we had to do some editing. So if you're watching or you're listening, again, right around the 12-minute mark or so, Tone's going to quite literally be barely finishing a sentence. And then you're going to hear a jingle going into our commercial break for the day. And then when we come back, we pick up and everything is fine from there. But anyway, just want to let you know that ahead of time. Again, whether you're watching, whether you're listening, that the power temporarily went out and kind of had to make do with a quick edit to be able to present the podcast in its entirety. So just want to let you know that. And on that note, here is today's episode of Talking Buffalo. It was a miserable, cold, rainy, windy day in Buffalo on Sunday, and it was also a miserable Sunday morning or Sunday night in London for the Buffalo Bills and their many fans that were at that game. It felt like a home game. But anyway, a disappointing loss for the Buffalo Bills, but a game where the score might not even end up mattering as much as the long-term ramifications from this game with big injuries. Anyway, welcome to Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. I'm Patrick Moran. I'm joined by my buddy Tone Pucks. And yeah, man, I mean, we talked about this game a lot Thursday night at Imperial Pizza, and it just an ugly loss where the team looked flat for a half. But again, more important than that was the potential, anyway, long-term ramifications, more significant serious injuries for a second straight week. Man, what's going on? How you feeling right now?
Like shit. Remember how like Thursday night we talked a little bit about how I had a great day and I was excited to come and do the podcast with you and things like that. Like this is the complete opposite of that. Like I would go with, I can't think of any place I'd rather not be than right here, right now.
That's fair.
Yeah. Look, I've gone from thoughts of ranting through thoughts of logic and then ultimately landing on complete and utter disinterest in what it will be like to talk about this football game. You'll probably, see a good bit of all three over the course of the next hour or so. Little bit of anger, which will be embellished a little bit because at the end of the day, there's too many more important things going on. I don't give a fuck. Then I'll talk myself into how to enjoy, what's the season that still, has plenty of time left in it. And then there'll be a lot of times where you go through things that happen like in this game. And that'll be the spots of total disinterest that I take in the conversation. So a little bit of all three today.
I'm still processing this. For people who are watching or listening, again, we thank you as always for tuning in, whether you're watching this on YouTube. If you are, make sure you hit that subscribe button or check us out on whatever podcasting platform that you listen on. We're recording this around dinner time-ish on Sunday. So yeah, man, I'm still processing everything. I really don't know how to feel. I'm kind of almost like a little bit shell shocked. Not that they lost the game, but again, things that we'll dive into in just a few minutes here, things that to me probably end up meaning a lot more than just the Bills getting their second loss of the season.
Because they lost the season. Let's equate your shell shock to the appropriate response. And let's just call out the elephant in the room and not be full of hope and things that your listeners want to hear. You're shell shocked because today the Buffalo Bills lost their season. But go ahead.
I can't go that far yet.
Fuck man. That. You can't go that far. Why? Because nobody else can? Because people don't want to hear that shit? Why don't you be different, man? Go that far. Come on. 3 weeks ago, we talked about losing Trey White and Matt Milano, and we're going to still talk about going out there and winning a championship? No, we weren't. No, we weren't. Listen, we're going to win some football games over the course of the next few weeks or whatever. We're going to reinstill some hope. All right, maybe have some guys, replacement level at best players on this team, make some plays to reinstill some hope. But at the end of the day, today ensured one thing. All right, the only parade this year down Delaware Ave will be that stupid one you and all your friends get excited about and wear green for. Okay, that's it. It ended today.
I'm not ready to go there.
Sorry,
I'm much more.
Was that too much too soon?
No.
Was that too much too soon?
You kind of prefaced your opening comments by saying you're going to have a combination of all this. Could be. Things don't look good. Let's just put it that way. That's fair. I still think there's enough talent on this team and enough reasons why they could still win. And we're going to get into a lot of specifics with this game today.
I kind of see that.
Yeah, only video people can see that.
I'm sure you'd catch that.
Anyway, I've kind of like sort of power ranked reasons why I thought the Bills lost. So we'll hit on those and kind of talk about how some of these might be long-term things as well. We'll get to that in just a minute. As far as this trip, I got to tell you, man, I put something on Facebook earlier in the week, or actually later in the week. I progressively throughout the week got a little bit jealous that I wasn't in London for the game. There was a time where I think I wanted to go, and then I quickly said, nah, I'm not going to be able to do that. But then I got jealous as the week went on, and not jealous anymore. Last year, I went to Notre Dame with my friends. First time ever. And I'm pretty much have liked Notre Dame football for most of my life on various different levels. Last year was the first time we ever went to South Bend, or at least I did with a group of friends. And I loved everything about it. Like we hit all the great spots. We visited the bookstore, went to the pep rally, just the stadium itself. There's just so much beautiful things around there. Couple of well-known bars, including, I can't remember the name of it, but the bar where a lot of scenes from Rudy, the film were filmed. So there was a lot of.
How about them apples?
Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. Anyway,
all right.
So this was
a bar scene, though. It was a bar scene.
It was last year's home opener that I went to against Marshall. I loved the experience. I loved being in Notre Dame till the game started. Then I hated it. I hated everything about it. They lost at home to Marshall last year.
Oh, good.
To open up the season. Kind of feel like that's how some Bills fans might feel right now about this trip to London. They went overseas. They experienced a lot, saw a lot of beautiful sights and sounds. And then they go to a stadium, a new stadium. They go watch the Bills playing, and it was just an ugly game with a lot of, again, definite long-term ramifications. I'm sick of saying potential because there is definitely long-term ramifications from this loss. Anyway, leaving that stadium in a really shitty mood. It's kind of how I was last year when I went to the Notre Dame game.
Well, it's so wrong. It is. It's wrong, and it probably makes me a bad friend. But like, I find joy in the fact that they lost to Marshall and you ended up going home like that because you still have the memories of the game themselves. I won't express similar joy, to those out there that that suffered a similar fate as you with their Bills trip this year. But can I just be totally honest? During the entire course of that, all I could really think about was the one time that I burned your Notre Dame hat when I was a Colorado fan and they beat them in like the 90-something Orange Bowl, and the bet was the loser, or the winner would get to burn the loser's hat. And nobody thought I was going to do that shit. And I took your Notre Dame hat right to like the toilet it was, and I started it on fire. Man.
I forgot about that too. You just brought that up. Holy shit.
That felt great.
That was almost 30 years ago, man. At least 25 years ago for sure. Damn. I forgot about that. I forgot about that, man.
Huge W in my life.
Last week too, we did our show. You're on with me as a guest from Imperial Live, and I told a story about the clearing for the NBA draft, and I watched our show back. I did a pretty shitty job of kind of like telling the details. I didn't make it sound as funny because the funniest part of the whole story was just how drunk and baked everybody was. Like, we were just partying hard. That was kind of a time in our lives where we partied all the time, man. It was a funny thing to do, to declare for the NBA draft after one half season at Duville College. But
it's ironic that you bring that up, though, because there was a part of me that was going to try walk back my comments from last week that you weren't really thought of as a funny guy, because I was like, actually, he was always making us laugh. But then like you just owned up to the fact that you didn't tell that story as well as maybe, you could have.
Right.
And now I don't want to walk back those comments. Now I feel vindicated that, you're funny in the moment. You know what I mean? You're good. Like, just especially, dry humor. Actually, you go with dry humor sometimes, able to poke fun at yourself, that sort of thing. So you do excel in that case, but your storytelling, could use some work. So
at least something to be desired for sure. I admit that.
At times,
I'm fine with that. But anyway,
I mean, the Notre Dame one you just told, that was riveting. I'm fucking pissed, dude. I just want to be mean to you for an hour straight. That's really all I want to do right now.
My whole point of that was just how much fun the experience of going to South Bend was for the first time, but the actual game just being a complete fucking shit show. And that's kind of what I'm sure Bills fans who made the trip, spent a lot of money and planning and time going overseas, left that stadium feeling like. And it feels like more than just a loss. And that's the worst part about today. I did have fun with you though last week in Imperial, and going back and watching it on the video side anyway. I got to pull these up because there were a couple of, I don't want to say photo bombers or video bombers when we were doing our show, which, to be honest with you, and I've done a lot of these, never happened really before. But this happened twice, and I don't even know if you noticed the first one, but or the second one here. I'm pulling up on the screen if you're watching on the video side. That's the dude who came out drunk with the smoke in his hand. And I think he was trying to say, I couldn't understand in the moment, but he was saying, I got takes. I think he was saying something like, I got a take or I got takes or something.
He was annoying. Like the guy you're probably about to show that was like, flexing or whatever. That dude was funny. He was just, just a quick photo bomb.
Yeah,
that guy was funny. The other guy was a little in the business. All right. And he had his like three friends off to the side, kind of snickered. Look how funny he is. I wanted a word with him. I wanted at him a little bit.
I told you not to engage him. That kind of almost backfired.
I've probably been that guy.
That made you want to engage with him a little more. But thankfully, he kind of like sort of walked away, or at least off to the side enough where he wasn't really within reach of us talking to him. But yeah, that's the kind of shit you do what happens anyway when you do these live
I want to
shows.
do that. I really want to do the security this week. I know you you have a show coming up there, and I'm not going to be a part of it as well. I should never be again. But I am. Should you ever get, especially if anyone's watching and sees that it would be funny to do, I could do something even funnier. I want to be there. You know what I mean? I want to be there. I want to, I want to be able to just, I may even have like an old shirt from a, not a Joe Macy fight, someone before Macy. Anyways, I worked security at one time, and I think I may still have a shirt that says security on it. And I'll wear that. At Imperial and just like stand behind you and, your more popular guests and just be like, keep fucking moving, buddy. Keep it moving.
All right, we're back. Had to take a quick break. Long story short, the power of this weather, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's windy as shit out here in West Seneca anyway, and the power quite literally went out. So anyway, that's what happened. We are back. We're power ranking the reasons why the Bills lost this football game today, and there's many of them here. So I kind of want to dive in with my guest, Tone Pucks. Let's start with the most obvious and then the most significant and the most important, and that's just devastating injuries to the defense. Matt Milano, more on him in just a second. Daquan Jones, they already were short Greg Rousseau coming into this game. Leonard Floyd, who had 2 sacks in this game, was playing through an injured ankle. He had to come out a couple times. Kingsley went down a few times. Deion Dawkins briefly went down. But anyway, the big two, of course, to Matt Milano and Daquan Jones. To me, this is far more significant in the Bills losing the 5th game of the regular season overseas. Is reported already, and you kind of got that idea in the locker room. If you were following on Twitter after the game, Jordan Poyer was already talking about prayers for Milano, just like with Trey White. Sean McDermott didn't confirm anything, but said in the press game that it wasn't good. And then not long ago on Sunday, Ian Rappaport confirmed that Matt Milano he broke his leg and is feared to have a knee injury, possibly his ACL, and the expectation is that it's season ending. So let's just start there. And We can speculate, and we will speculate. He's done. He's done for the season. This is an injury that, and I tweeted this during the game. I don't know that they can overcome this injury. I don't. I know you were pretty blunt with your statement here at the top of the show. As close as I will come to agreeing with you, is this guy going down? I mean, they just lost in back-to-back weeks. In my opinion, two of the most five irreplaceable players on this roster. Last week, Trey, this week, Milano. Milano's top five most irreplaceable player, and he's not 5'4" or 3 either. I think he might be one or two after Josh Allen. Anyway, tough, man. It's tough. And this is what I said. I'm kind of shell shocked. It's what a fucking terrible thing to happen. It just,
well, far be it for me to be the one to, try to put the show back on track, because normally I'm fine with, wandering from the subject. But you started this with power ranking why the Bills lost.
mm-hmm.
And as much as I agree with everything related to the injuries, I'm not going to put that probably in my top 3, maybe.
Really?
Of why the Bills lost this football game. That's the biggest story coming out of this football game. All right. I mean, that's just, again, just all you got to do is go back to what I said at the beginning. If in fact that's going to be out there, because part of me thinks you just didn't like how I was rolling during the first 15 minutes of this show, and you pulled the plug and did one of these, whoa, the power. But no, man, Elam was, he was terrible, but that was going into, we knew that going into the game that he was pressed into a role. The ones that had to come in for Jones and Milano, I don't think ranks in the top 3 reasons of why we lost this football game. It's the number one reason why this football team isn't going to reach its ultimate goal this year. But why it lost today? No, the defense did enough to overcome those injuries. And I think most people are pointing to the offense today as far as the side of the ball that cost them the most.
That's fair. We could debate, or we're not even debating, because I could tend to agree with you there. Maybe if these aren't power ranked 1 through 9 or however many these are, it is a big factor. I mean, look at DaQuan Jones on the injury. First series of the game, he tears his pec. Well, that's the report anyway, or the speculation, I should say, at this time. He teared on a third down stop. He made the play. Now, they did play pretty good defense. They forced 2 turnovers. They kept the Bills in the game when the offense was just, brain dead for a lot of it, quite frankly. So, yeah, they did play well. But still, you have 2 playmakers out there who maybe the defense gets another turnover, or a sack or another big play on them. Then maybe they score. Maybe Milano gets a pick 6. That's what I'm saying. These are devastating injuries. Maybe it's not the most important reason why they lost this game. And I agree with you. It's more about the long term with these guys. More, and we'll talk about Von Miller in a minute, because he did play sort of. And like I said, Greg Rizzo being out with a sore foot was a big deal. But you are right, because the defense, despite these injuries, they were adequate enough. They weren't great by any means, but they were adequate enough to overcome it. And the offense didn't just they just simply didn't do their job. Look, we can spend this whole hour talking about Matt Milano and DaQuan Jones. And again, to reiterate, Ian Rappaport says broken leg, likely ACL. With DaQuan Jones, it is a torn pec, and it's going to be a question of if it's a low grade or a high grade. If it's a low grade, he's still missing 4 to 6 weeks. It's a high grade surgery, and he's done for the year. So anyway, devastating injuries. Long-term effect, maybe more than this game specifically, but still, those are 2 of their best players. And you have to think if they're out there, maybe they make a couple plays. What about going to London? Because this is where I have number 2. I got this ranked really high. The going to London. We talked about this on Thursday. I brought up to you an excellent article that Jay Skursky had wrote for the Buffalo News about how carefully and articulate they were with planning all this stuff out, all the data, sports science, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, man. I'm not the smartest dude, but that looked like a football team that was sleepwalking in the first half, especially on offense. They traveled late. They were 50 hours, I think it was, they got there before the game. In hindsight now, and again, we have the power of watching a game and then making opinions after a football game, not before it, like we did on Thursday. But now that you have the hindsight of watching this game, that looked like it was a really bad decision to travel as late as they did, right?
Yeah, man. That's one of the things going into the game, even if they had gotten it right, even if they had now, not that necessarily that getting it right means that they did it on Monday instead of Friday, but even if that wasn't a topic of conversation, when they went, but just rather the Jags having been there already.
It was an advantage for them, big time. And they admitted it after the game. Trevor Lawrence talked about it. I don't know if you heard it post game.
I mean, 100% that was going to be an advantage. 100% that was going to be an advantage.
Why do you think? And again, it's easy to be an armchair quarterback, and that's exactly what we're doing now. But that said, why do you think the Bills did decide? What do you think was the reasoning? Why do you think they waited as long as they did to go to London? And as I think about it now, it's like maybe they should have gotten there Monday.
I mean,
and had all week to acclimate.
Because someone that's paid a fair amount of good chunk of change in the organization told them to. I mean, that's it. And I'm not going to go as far as to say that, this person, it just does a terrible job, is terrible at their job. They probably have other, responsibilities within the sports science department, whatever that might look like. But somebody told them to do this, and they're going to probably, have to answer for that in some way, shape, or form.
McDermott didn't sound happy afterwards after the game. Again, I don't know if you caught his presser or not, but he was kind of asked about this, and then he kind of gave the basic vanilla. We're going to evaluate everything like we always do when it comes to these things, but you could tell that he was not happy with how things turned out. Didn't you get a sense early on watching the game? Like, I'm talking early that just something just felt off about this team, especially on offense. 2, 3 and outs to start. What they had, like 7 punts going into this game for the whole season. I think they had 4 punts maybe in the first half. It just, you could tell early on, this just was not an offense that was in sync. So
had a bad feel early. Sure.
Yeah. All right. So that's another reason. Like I said, I do think the travel plans in hindsight was not well done, I should say. And Jacksonville knew they had an advantage. They talked about having the advantage after the game, and they kind of they jumped on the Bills early, and the Bills never completely recovered. Another factor I have, and this is not anything necessarily against the Bills, I suppose, but I think Jacksonville's best players played like it. Calvin Ridley was fantastic. He had 7 catches for $122. Christian Kirk, 6 catches for 78 yards. Travis Etienne was probably the MVP of this game. 184 yards from scrimmage, had a touchdown, had 30 touches. So again, they're skill position players, which we spent some time talking about Thursday night last week at Imperial. I mean, these guys just stepped up. And look, we're going to talk about Kyrie Elam in a couple minutes here because he's obviously going to be on this list. But it wasn't just him. These guys were making plays against other guys on this field. And this is kind of one case where I think you just got to give some credit to Jacksonville because star players played like stars for me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think too much about that, but I think, like you said, Thursday night, we talked about the skill players. We talked about them being certainly an AFC South favorite going into the year. And, and Lawrence belongs in that same conversation. He was very good. So, yeah, the skill players played like it. And we didn't, I think we kind of used Zay Jones as a footnote on Thursday, and we could almost say, hey, kind of a footnote today too, but damn, that was a pretty nice early touchdown too.
Yeah.
He went up and got that ball. They have the potential with some money that they spent and some draft capital that they spent at those skill positions and at pass rusher, all those positions that, that grade you out to being a contender. They, they're invested in. And when they play like they did today, they could be dangerous. But again, I think they played against a at least inferior one-on-one competition. Okay. Ridley and Elam was wildly inferior, vastly inferior one-on-one competition. ATN was gaining a lot of yards in that second level that was undermanned today after the Milano injury. So maybe what I would do, even though we may have them ranked differently in terms of factors in today's losses, I might take the injuries, that you alluded to, and I kind of said weren't as big a factor as the Bills' offense, but you can apply the performance of the Jags skill position players to the injury factor and kind of piggyback that point by saying it's probably a good reason why they were able to get off the way that they were.
Yeah, and it is definitely worth saying that it didn't happen during the game. It was before the game, but Christian Benford didn't play. And I think that hurt them because that forced Elam onto the field.
Yeah, Benford and Rousseau. I mean, you mentioned Rousseau earlier, but geez, we talk about the ones lost in this game and the biggie to Trey last week, the season ender, but we didn't even really talk about Benford and Rousseau. Those are big losses as well. Probably Benford of the two ends up being the bigger loss.
Absolutely.
Because the drop off to the next player, because Rousseau's injury gave Epinesa a bigger role today, and he was pretty damn good. Whereas Benford's injury gave Kaiir Elam a look today, and he was pretty damn bad.
Yeah, I kind of want to stay with this theme while we're at it, so I'm kind of maneuvering a little bit some of these power rankings because I got it. Listen, Kaiir Elam just he stinks. I'm tired of being, we want him to be good. We do. We want him to be good. He's a first round pick. You don't want him to be a bust. You don't want to call him a bust. You don't want to go that far yet. But look, first 4 games, there's a reason why he didn't play. And you saw today that there's a reason why he didn't play. And it's just because he's just not that good. And I don't want to hear, and I know there's a lot of apologists out there who are saying, Calvin Ridley does that to a lot of corners. Sure. It wasn't just Ridley, though. Everyone had success against him. I saw a couple plays. I tweeted about it. It was actually after a good Bills play. I saw back-to-back plays where Jordan Poyer was yelling at Kaiir Elam about something. And you can see it on camera during the game. It caught my eye. I noticed this. And if you want to know how bad he was in a very, still winnable game at the end, the fourth quarter, he got benched for Jamarcus Ingram, who was on the practice squad this week. I don't know what you do at this point. Benford, first of all, I'm not sold on Christian Benford either. I just want to put that out there. We talked about it. He's had a couple so-so moments, but he's head and shoulders above Kaiir Elam right now. Thought Dane Jackson was okay. And that's what you're going to get from Dane Jackson. Some physicality, a couple plays he makes. He gets beat a little bit. You're low end, maybe mid end CB2, I guess, Dane Jackson. But it's easy to say, and I know it sounds like Madden, but Brandon Beane, they got to do something at this position. They have to address it. They need to make a trade. You talked about the season being over with injuries. This is why I can't agree with that yet. I think if they do nothing and they lose Matt Milano and DaQuan Jones for the season, I think the season's over. But there's an opportunity to maybe go out there and make it, or Trey White too. I should have thrown him in there. That's kind of what I was getting at, was Trey White, more than even as much as Milano. Brandon Beane needs, and I don't know who, but there's definitely losing teams right now that got veterans maybe on the last year of the deal. Guys are not going to resign, or, you're looking to rebuild, whether it's a corner or linebacker or both. I almost liken it to Brandon Beane. To me, needs to get into LA Rams all-in mode like the Rams did a couple of years ago. They traded for Von Miller. They traded for Odell Beckham. They need to go out and do what they got to do to replenish their talent on this defensive end. They have to. Brandon Beane's got to find a way to make trades. Start at corner.
One of my favorite takes of yours of all time. I was thinking about that on the porch, my pregame cigarette. And I was thinking about the trade market and how I'm somewhat dismissive of it because I just don't think Beane's going to do it. He values the draft picks, so much. They talk about the, just the in-house options and the complexity of learning things, maybe more so on offense than defense. But I write it off, and I was thinking about you putting it out there that way with the Rams, and here I am complimenting you like 20 minutes ago. I was like, I hate when they compliment each other. But you were right on, man. Got to. Oddly, the first name that came to mind, I was rooting for a Steeler loss today, because I take kind of like what I just said about, people who know their system and things like that. And one of the first names that came to mind was, man, can we go back out and grab Levi or something?
He's played pretty well too for Pittsburgh.
But they win, and they're 3-2. They're in the mix.
Yeah, they're 3-2. Same
over there,
the Bills.
and they paid him a few bucks. They're probably not ready to go shipping him back to Buffalo. But here, would you trade Kaiir Elam straight up for Levi Wallace right now?
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Right? I mean,
I don't think.
Right?
Kaiir Elam's like, how you like when you take a new car and you drive it off the lot, how you lose that sticker value right away. Kaiir Elam's trade value was never going to be more than what it was before today.
Oh, before he
was a mid-round pick today. Now he might be a 6th, 7th round pick.
Yeah, it's awful right now. It's a bad spot for this team.
He's a barely rossable guy
in this particular investment. It's a bad spot to be in, and the problem is he's unplayable. Yeah. So he's not your number 3, right? I mean, okay, let's say you can live with Dane and Benford. We're still only 5 weeks into this season. We might be decimated by injuries. Unfortunately, we might not be done with them. Chances are we're not. So if I have an unplayable third cornerback, maybe Ingram can step in as a third. But you're right. I mean, it's time. You have to go out there. You've got to find that team, that veteran, that that's willing to part with one. And if it costs you a 4, 3, who fucking cares? Jesus,
you got to do it.
It's the window will close on you this year. The window will close on you and a good chunk of your original roster. We talked about this, I think, in the very first episode that we did. Because we did one like on a Sunday night before the Jets game.
It was a primer, right? Jets primer.
And not that the window is closing, but you're going to see this roster undergo a more significant turnover than it's ever seen before, probably.
Especially this offseason.
The window's closing on a lot of guys. Poyer, Hyde,
maybe Vaughn.
I think Vaughn still got one more year. That would just be it would just cost way too much to cut him. Like, you have no player. But potentially Steph,
lots of guys.
And if you go out there just as undermanned as the cornerback position looked today, and potentially the linebacker position may look moving forward, it's negligent. It's negligent.
Yeah, and you talked about last week Brandon Beane earning a game ball after the Miami game. It's like
it is some week to week shit, though, man.
It really is.
It is some week to week shit.
They have to. I do think. We were talking for a few minutes pre-recording. If DaQuan Jones is out for a long time, and it certainly looks like that's going to be the case, I could live with Poona Ford, and you said this before. It's going to be a drop-off, but that drop-off might not be all that significant. Poona Ford is a capable defender. I say there's going to be a drop-off for sure, just because of the level that DaQuan Jones is playing this year. It's been all pro through the first month of the season. So, but you can't make a trade. You can't go address every single little thing that's out there. Again, that's fantasy land you live in. But when it comes to corner and quite possibly linebacker, they got a rookie right now or Tyrell Dodson. One of those two guys are going to be tasked with replacing Matt Milano. It's not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen. You got to go with Chicago, Arizona, one of these Carolina, one of these floundering teams. And I don't know the players right now. I'll find out this week who potentially could be available. But you got to go pluck somebody or maybe multiple guys from a roster. You just have to. The season means too much to not do it.
Or you do what a lot of people thought might be in the cards before Christian Benford started to, look the part, although he looked pretty mortal today in a game where he wasn't being, not protected by Milano in the way that,
Sure.
the defensive line protects linebackers. But, when he had to kind of carry the torch this week and didn't have Milano, and who's just, he's going to be where the assignment calls for him to be. Point being, Bernard, I may have just said Benford. Bernard looked a little pedestrian today. So lost my train of thought. Got it back. What I thought the Bills might be forced to do, and I think others thought they might be forced to do before Bernard got healthy and looked okay, was a little bit more of Taylor Rapp in that three safeties, one linebacker. I don't want to say for sure that he'd be, the second nickel backer per se, but at the same time, I don't know, we maybe call it a big dime. But maybe more Taylor Rapp. Maybe if Dotson and Williams, is that
Dorian,
his name?
yeah, Dorian Williams, yeah.
I mean, that guy looks the part.
He's athletic.
And then he gets to the point of attack and just completely whiffs. I mean, holy cow.
He got benched for it at times during this game, which is another point, but I'm not going to harp on it or talk about it much because it's self-explanatory. Tackling was not good. Again, Travis Etienne broke a shitload of tackles. He's a good running back, but you got to bring him down. Last week during our preview at Imperial, I asked you if you were concerned about a letdown, and you said very much so. And I kind of told you I wasn't. Do you remember the reason why I said, and we argued about this? I'm half wrong.
I win. I mean,
well, what did I say was the reason why I wasn't concerned about a letdown? I said because of something specific. I mentioned
you did
the trenches. I said the Bills. I said the Bills are very good in the trenches, and that's going to allow them to win games that normally they wouldn't. I was half. I thought the Bills were very good on the defensive line against Sunday, but this is why I was wrong. The offensive line was shit.
Stunk.
Yeah, the offensive line sucked. They were terrible on Sunday. The Bills had zero success in the running game. Quite literally, Bills running backs, the three running backs combined for just 15 yards on 10 carries. 29 total rushing yards for the Bills, and that includes Josh. That's the lowest of the entire Sean McDermott era. They never have had a worse rushing game than they did in this one. In the 14 team attempts, tied for the second fewest under the Sean McDermott era. James Cook, 9 touches today and produced -1 yard. I got to put this on the offensive line. I mean, when the all-22 film comes out and the PFF grades come out, I think we'll find out just how bad, this line was. But even to the naked eye, they weren't blocking. Jacksonville was just beating them man for man. They were just beating the Bills blocking, and there was nowhere to go for the running backs. It was frustrating to be able to not run the football like that, especially when you're struggling throwing the ball early on.
I want Ken Dorsey to share some of that blame.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Why?
For sure.
Elaborate.
Well, I mean, look, man, I mean, a lot of times, the effectiveness of the run is going to be based upon just, when they don't see it coming. It's a lot of these runs are, have some design to them. They whether that kind of that draw that they run, that delayed draw that they run and gets them some yards and things like that. I feel as though schematically, the run game's success has shown well for Dorsey. So, when it doesn't, I'm gonna put some back there too. Because again, when the running game has had success, I've given Dorsey credit, maybe not, on the show or whatever, but I feel like Dorsey's commitment to it, with some help from McDermott, I'm sure, but I feel like his commitment to it and his use of the backs, has been to his credit. So when it doesn't work, I'm gonna have him take some accountability for it. I put that terribly, but you know where I'm going with
sure,
it.
Yeah. I would say there's one drive specifically. I don't remember at what point of the game it was, but where I remember yelling about Ken Dorsey. It was the Bills stretched the field. It was back-to-back plays. It was a nice throw to Stephon Diggs, and this was after a handful of possessions of doing nothing with the football. But they do a nice pass to Diggs. Then they came back on the next play and threw a nice 9-yard pass to Gabe Davis. It was 2nd and 1. Then they ran that pitch play to the outside to James Cook. and he got snuffed for like a 3 or 4 yard loss.
Uh,
And then it's third down, and Josh threw a pass on the flat to Latavius Murray, thinking that hopefully he can make somebody miss. And he didn't. Which, by the way, sidebar, that was another thing that happened with the Bills today on Sunday, a low-key kind of factor. They didn't make anybody miss. Like, I don't think the Bills broke any tackles at all. Khalil Shakir on that 2-point conversion.
I was not thinking about that one.
Yeah,
Who is not thinking about that one? I mean, what the fuck? Run that play to Deontay Hardy.
Yeah,
I know. Why are you running that play to Shakir? I mean, maybe, the fact that it's Shakir and he's not as elusive as Hardy, maybe, they're not sending someone in motion with them, or they think that Shakir is someone who's more likely to get lost in that play than Hardy. But just in terms of, if in fact that play is designed to make someone miss one-on-one, then it should be run to Deontay Hardy. Those are the little things that should still be pissing people off about Ken Dorsey. Let me tell you a big thing about that should be pissing people off about Ken Dorsey. All right. All we heard was how this offense was going to hum with their 11.5 personnel and their shiny new weapon from the first round of the draft pick. He ain't done shit.
Yeah.
Not shit.
Agreed, man. I can't disagree. That's something I got.
So when you've got big whiffs like that from the OC, and the running game has, the sort of day that they did today, then I'm going to look at the OC too. I'm going to still look at the OC as a potential problem here for this football team. I'm just not as hung up on it today because so much other shit went terrible.
Sure.
All right. But, 3 good games, 2 of which were against, bottom feeders in this league, does not a season make when it comes to judging this offensive coordinator. He stunk today.
I'm kind of going random now instead of power ranking. He's in order at this point because you brought up the tight ends, and that's definitely on my notes too. The tight ends were not a factor yet again, and they haven't been for this season. Dawson Knox, 3 catches, 17 yards, including a drop on third down on the first series of the game. Again, this guy's just a problem catching the football. He's inconsistent as shit. And Dalton Kincaid, who you spoke of, 2 catches for 19 yards. So total 5 catches for just 36 yards from both tight ends combined.
Dawson Knox is mid as fuck. All right. Great kid, great hair.
I tweeted that.
Love having here. Mid as fuck.
I tweeted that today. I used that word mid too. I said he's a handsome dude. The girls are out.
Are you serious?
I swear to God, I did.
I had no idea, bro.
I'm going to tell you
no idea.
You didn't say. I just showed you how much you pay attention to my Twitter and all that. But
I wasn't really all that into Twitter during the game.
No?
Nah.
Do you follow, are you on social media? You're not on social media much during the game?
I'll miss a play or two, actually. Like, I had to go back and see how we ended up with the football. I think maybe the Epinesa strip sack or one other one like it. Was there another turnover early that wasn't Epinesa? Like maybe a Dodson recovery,
yeah, he recovered
or something
it. He
like
recovered
that.
it.
I missed that play. I'll use Twitter to kind of go back and see anything I may have missed. It makes me sound like such a disengaged fan during the game, which I'm not. I'm just, with kids and everything, sometimes I'm peeling an orange and I forget to walk into the living room with the orange. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't want people to think like I'm just looking at a box score and coming up with stuff here, but I do miss plays. And I use Twitter more for that. And maybe after a quarter or something to see narratives, but I don't need anyone to tell me great stop Taron Johnson 3rd and 2 for the Jags.
Well, that's fair. So here's what I actually wrote about Dawson Knox, word for word. I said Dawson Knox not being able to come up with the catch is something we unfortunately hear far too often. I don't care how hot you girls and some of you guys think Dawson Knox is, a dude is just straight up mid. Literally word for word.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, I did begin to read that tweet, and then I only made it one sentence. It was a 2-part tweet, and I only got to the first part. And I mean that too, because I would totally say, yeah, I bit that from you. I seen that shit, you tweeted it, and
Dawson Knox is kind of low key because there's so many bigger narratives going on with this team right now. But Dawson Knox low key is starting to look like a bad contract, and one of those where I remember, I don't know the numbers. I didn't look before the show, but I know if the Bills were to cut Dawson Knox next year, it wouldn't help them. So it's kind of like they're committed to him financially this year and next. And this 12 personnel through 5 weeks has just not been effective. It hasn't. The tight ends have not made any kind of significant impact. I still feel good about Dalton Kincaid to the point where I'm good if they just play more 3 receiver sets and 1 tight end, but I want that tight end to start being Dalton Kincaid more than I want it to be Dawson Knox. So anyway, the tight end's just not a positive factor. Von Miller played. Props to you. You did call that on Thursday. I did not think he was going to play. He did. Not well and not much. He was on a pitch count. Sean McDermott said that after the game, because in the later part of the game, he didn't even play. He was
That's horseshit.
He's sitting there with a ball cap on the sidelines. He didn't stiff the quarterback. He did. He looked slow and decisive. I obviously.
That's why he came out of the fucking game.
Yeah,
okay, that's why he came out of the game. Don't give me this pitch count bullshit. Okay, if he's on a pitch count, then you stagger that throughout the game so that he ain't putting a hat on in the middle of the third quarter. He's getting to the finish line if he's on a pitch count.
Yeah.
Okay, he came out of the game because he wasn't winning a single rep. All right, it's the same thing as, well, okay, Elam just got beat up by great competition in front of him. It's enormously concerning. It's enormously concerning. It belongs right in the conversation with every other injury that has decimated this defense and frankly derailed this team's Super Bowl chances.
I would say him playing and Greg Rizzo at first glance, and when you hear that, it's like, oh, I'll take that trade. But no, is that what I saw today? Greg Rizzo's been more valuable to this team than what we got from Vaughn today. Not shocking. Dude's coming off an ACL. It's his first action back. You got to hope he's going to be able to ramp it up.
They're loaded up there. They're loaded up there. And did they overdo it? No. All right. Did they spend a little too many assets up there instead of fortifying, some depth at the linebacker position in case of an injury? Because my God, did we not all say, holy cow, what sort of trouble would this team be in with an injury to Matt Milano? But yet, we're rolling out 9 up front. I mean, I love being able to do that. I do. But did we leave the back end of the defense? Did we leave the cupboards a little bare by going out there with the investments made up front?
I feel like this. I'm a little bit more optimistic with Vaughn. Kind of, this was like preseason game to me. Like, he just wanted to go out there and get some action. You know what I mean? Wasn't effective. I get it too. I agree in a sense. If he's on a true pitch count, maybe you kind of stagger that. You use that word, and I agree. Maybe he plays less in the first half, so he could play at least some snaps in the second half, especially once if the Bills are leading and they're going to need a sack. He's your closer, right?
It's a lie. It was a bold-faced lie to say that he had reached he may have been on a pitch count, but he did not reach it in the third quarter of a 1-score football game. That's horse shit.
Yeah, he didn't look like Von Miller, man. I don't even know that he got close to the quarterback. Anyway, so that was a factor. 2 more things. And this is why I do think injuries to the players during the game do matter more, maybe. They couldn't stop Jacksonville on third down. Jacksonville was 10 of 17 on third down for the game. And there were a couple drives where the Bills had them pinned inside the 10, and they converted third downs. And they might not have scored on those drives, but they at least got out to the 30, 40-yard line, and then they would flip the field after punting. One of them was, well, I want to save that for my last point about some officiating and some penalties. But anyways, let's just say for the game, Jacksonville just had way too much success on third down. And this is where I think having DaQuan Jones in there for 4 quarters, he makes a play. Having Matt Milano in there for 4 quarters, he's going to wrap up on a play where maybe Dorian Williams or Dotson aren't in position or they missed the tackle. That's why I kind of keep going back to the injuries being a factor. But anyway, Jacksonville, the Bills couldn't get off the field. Jacksonville dominated the time of possession. So I thought that was a pretty big factor.
A lot of bend. The Bills will continue to actually. The Bills will probably have to go back to being the bend but don't break defense that they were the last couple of years under Leslie Frazier, because of the fact that the injuries have now left them undermanned. I think the defense was set up this year for McDermott to not have to play bend but don't break ball. He could be aggressive, but he could also, when needed, all right, he could certainly rush 4, drop 7 kind of thing. I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we're going to see success on third downs, that sort of thing. I think McDermott's probably going to be forced to, even though today, because of some of the injuries up front, he blitzed quite a bit.
He did.
I kind of feel like he's going to pull back from that moving forward. And especially, when he has Rousseau back, if he gets Vaughn to 100%, if he can get home with 4, if he can get home with 4, because the blitzing, certainly didn't work today.
Yeah, and I keep harping on it, but again, DeQuan gets to that quarterback. He been
does.
great with pressure,
and I think
Rousseau too, man.
We're gonna miss that as much as we maybe both think. Stylistically, Poona Ford can hold down the fort of that 3 tech or 1 tech. The bigger guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he can rush the passer the way Jones started this year, and that collapses the pocket, and that helps a lot. And Milano, Milano's a pretty good blitzer, good blitzer too. So they were trying to dial it up with Taron Johnson and stuff. It's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if McDermott goes the way of continued, pressure and aggressiveness, or if he tries to take a little bit off of, the youth on the back end, on the back 7, by dropping more.
I went on an epic profanity-laced tirade when Moran went down. I thought he tore his ACL for a second. The way it was, I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I mean, I'm not gonna, just be 20 minutes of me swearing on the show. Yeah, and then he got back out there. Thank God, because at that point, if they would have lost Johnson for the season too, I'm on board. Now I agree with your take 100%.
You should agree already.
I don't agree yet already. I don't agree.
Taron Johnson's? That's the one that's going to put you over the top?
Yes. Yes. Okay. But I don't agree. I only don't agree because I still think Brandon Beane is going to do something in terms of the trade market to add to this roster to kind of replenish, at least to some extent, what they lost, instead of just saying next man up, Tyrell Dodson and fucking Kyrie Elam. I just think that Brandon Beane's going to do more than that. Last point I had about this anyway, a combination of some dumb penalties and also some really shitty officiating. Now you're a ref and you gotta get sensitive about officiating shit. Sometimes fans might, ride the officials too much and they just want to find a reason to blame things. But there were some bad calls this game on both sides of the ball. Like that Josh Allen sack on Josh Allen, that was a bullshit call. If I'm a Jacksonville fan, I'm really pissed off. I mentioned a penalty when it came to the Bills on a third down play out of the Jacksonville end zone. Calvin Ridley kind of bent his body in position and Poyer hit him in the back. He could see the ball or anything. Those shouldn't be penalties. I don't know. I thought they were bad calls. But anyway.
I hated that one the most.
Yeah, it was a bad call. Like, what is Jordan Poyer supposed to do? I mean, even the TV guys who I thought was shitty, by the way, they were saying that. There's just some terrible calls in this game and over officiating too. I mean, come on, man.
That's how I would define it.
I hate when games.
That's where I was going to go.
Kind of get taken over by officiating. It doesn't happen often. It's a controversial call here and there, and that happens a lot. But like, it felt like the officials were just taking over this game.
In the words of Marv Levy, they were over officious jerks today.
Yeah, 11 penalties for 109 yards on the Bills. That
still didn't remotely become a factor in costing us this football game.
19 penalties accepted all in all for over 160 yards total between both teams. It was a factor. It was definitely a factor. Again, that Poyer penalty, if that's not called, Jacksonville's punting out of the back of their end zone, man. I think it was a factor. Maybe not as much of a factor as some other people think, but it was a factor nonetheless anyway. But anyway, those are my things.
Mom's calling me. Can I grab this real quick?
No, you can't grab this real quick. Call your mom. Call your mom after the show. I look back at these things and I kind of feel like I undersold Jacksonville's best players making plays. I think we both did undersell this a little bit because I go back to the last 3 Buffalo wins. And what did they do more than anything else over this 3-game winning streak? They took the best players, Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, Chase Young, Tyreek Hill, Chubb, Wilkins, and they made them non-factors in their game. The star players the last 3 weeks for their opponents were non-factors. Where today, Calvin Ridley and Travis Etienne and the other Josh Allen, I say the other Josh Allen. Josh Allen Buffalo's been the other Josh Allen the 2 times these teams have played, because Josh Allen from Jacksonville's been great. But anyway, their star players, I just feel like dominated this game. I just do. The best receiver on the field was Calvin Ridley, and the best running back on the field was Travis Etienne. And they played like it. And I think I feel like we undersold that a little bit as factors why this team lost.
Maybe. As far as whether or not, they were game planned for in the same way that you would a Tyreek Hill. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me if the Bills said, you know what, they have weapons. We're not going to necessarily rank their weapons maybe in the same way that we would, clearly put a Tyreek Hill at the top of the pecking order in terms of who we need to stop against Miami. So maybe you're right in the sense that they simply didn't, scheme to stop a guy or two in particular. And if this was just, a shitty loss in London, then we could add that to the list of things to talk about as far as, the plethora of reasons why they lost. But referees, poor schematics, all these things, they're a footnote to the fact that the real story here is this team comes out of London far, far, far less likely to compete for a championship than they went into it.
Long term, sure. Now that we talked about a lot of these points, you still wouldn't put injuries as a top 3 reason why they lost this game specifically?
I like, you know what? It'll get me into the top 3. I'm still going to put it more on the offense than the defense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm still going to put it more on the preparation, travel, I'm still going to put it on some of that. Maybe not specifically when they chose to fly, but the fact that, that Jacksonville was already there, that sort of thing. But it does creep into, no, it doesn't creep into my top 3. It comes into my top 3 emphatically. When you start to talk about the success that the Jags offense had statistically on third down and with some of their skill players, those were a direct result of the injuries. Yeah. And I'm ready to say that they were a bigger factor than I gave them credit for today.
I think in hindsight, watching this game, my biggest mistake coming into this game was giving the offensive line too much credit because they did not play well today. And I also think I made Christian Benford not playing his small footnote. And I think his presence was sorely missed today. In part because of the job that Kyrie did.
Yeah. Or did you're still skeptical on Benford.
Yeah, but now I realize how much better I think.
The drop off is insane.
Look, it's an uncomfortable topic again because he's a first round pick and he's only in his second year, and it just sucks to call the guy a bust. But what's is the light going to turn on for Kyrie Elam? I just don't see it, man. I don't see it, and I don't think it's going to matter because I still think Brandon Beane is going to make a move. Maybe he's going to be a throw-in in part of a trade. I don't know. Anyway, bright spots for the game. AJ Epinesa was fantastic, man. 2 sacks, almost had another interception. Ed Oliver played really well too. Ed Oliver had 9 tackles, a sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 3 tackles for a loss. I'm looking forward and hopeful that he's going to be able to continue to play at this level long term if DeQuan is out, because Ed Oliver is easily off to the best start of his career. And with AJ Epinesa, I'll say this much. I hated at the time when Beane traded Boogie instead of AJ, but 100% Beane made the right call. AJ Epinesa with more playing time now has been really good this year.
Absolutely zero concern across the front 4. And that's not to say that I am not, worried about what it's going to look like without Daquan Jones, that there's going to be some sort of drop off there. There is, but man, again, 1 to 7, maybe 1 to 8. They're just so deep, and there's a ton of talent on those edges. We're going to need if Von's healthy. If Von's healthy, there's a ton of talent on those edges.
They're legit 4 deep on the defensive end pass rush if Vaughn is healthy. And I'm not talking like, yeah, this is a depth player. They got 4 good pass rushers. Leonard Floyd's got 5.5 sacks this year in 5 games. AJ Epenesa has been great. They're not even the starters if Vaughn's healthy and Greg Rizzo's out there. So they are really strong on the edge. I think they can overcome, and we talked about this a little bit, they can overcome Daquan Jones. It's Milano and Trey White that I'm far, far, far more concerned about, especially Matt Milano. Dorian Williams, I have him listed as kind of a bright spot only because he was forced in action. He missed some tackles. He got benched. I saw.
How do you? You can't have a bright spot for a dude who gets benched. Benched. He
did some.
Shit ain't a bright spot.
He did some nice things. Okay, well, I got Tyrell Dodson, kind of them two lumped together. I don't like Terrell Dodson as a football player. He did not. I've said this. Terrell Bernard did not win the starting job at middle linebacker. Terrell Dodson lost it straight up.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be good going forward if he's got to be the one who's going to start from Milano. I think with some preparation and a full week of knowing he's going to start, I think Dorian Williams will be the starter going forward, not Tyrell Dodson. But they at least somewhat held their own with Matt Milano gone.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
not confident about either, though, going forward. I want to make that really clear.
But you're about to go against Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, and Baker Mayfield. Don't sleep on Baker. Fucking plus 1,000. That team was plus 1,000 to win the South. And I sat there and waited like an idiot.
Yeah. Floyd, I have him in my bright spots. He's playing through an injured ankle.
I bet the Jags.
He went out, huh?
I bet the Jags.
What about what?
I bet the Jags.
Did you really?
Plus 5.5 parlayed with Kyle Bradis to have more strikeouts than Christian Javier in the postseason. Halfway there, baby. Halfway there, baby.
I got Leonard Floyd as a bright spot again. He's playing through an injured ankle, but he still had 2 sacks. He's got 5.5 in 5 games. I mean, he's on pace for double-digit sacks yet again. Gabe Davis played good. Stephon Diggs played great. I know there was a lot of people screaming at the TV when Gabe Davis dropped the pass. It was a 2nd and 9. He dropped it, and I know fans were losing their mind because it was right in his hands. That was like last year, Gabe. But your boy had 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, getting tough yards, running good routes. I'm good with Gabe Davis. This whole wide receiver 2 bullshit that we feel like I go through every week with fans. 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Don't know what more you want. Stephon Diggs, 8 catches for $121 and a touchdown. So that was obviously
should have been
spot.
2. Should have been 2 touchdowns.
Should have been 2. Yeah, Josh Allen.
It's a big underthrow. I don't want to hear that he was so wide open that I just wanted to make sure I didn't overthrow him. That pass was shit. It should have been 6, and we didn't score on the drive. It was the same drive as the Gabe's drop. So people will probably remember that. And, I mean, that's obviously an easier rep to make than a 60-yard downfield throw, but I don't give a shit. Okay. That should have been a touchdown. The quarterback was mid today.
Really?
Yeah.
I got to look at the film because on that should have been a touchdown. I agree it was wide open. I mean, anyone could see that on TV, but I feel like at first glance, which of course, because you wouldn't see a fucking replay on NFL Network, it was just garbage, that broadcast. But I feel like early on during the play, Josh had to kind of sidestep and kind of throw almost flat because he was trying to escape some pressure, not running, but just having to move laterally before he got rid of the football.
Not sure. I could be wrong, but I just, when you go back and when you look, all right, see if maybe you're not talking about the pick that he underthrew to Diggs. Because I feel like that one, and he said as much in the post game, that one, he got rushed a little bit on. The one that, was underthrown a little bit, but still completed.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe you were confusing the two, but maybe
no. That's the play I'm thinking of. I wasn't talking about which, by the way, it seems like every week now Josh is throwing a 3rd down bomb that ends up basically in a punt because it gets intercepted.
I thought he was late with that one. It's another one of the big reasons why I'm going mid, man. Steph looked open.
Okay.
I feel like Josh was late.
It wasn't a great game for Josh. So I mean,
I don't care. I
I
know
still
the
feel like it was
stats. I
better
mean,
than
it's
that.
crazy.
I don't care about the stats.
They're good.
Yeah,
they're actually
2 for 3,
very good. But you can't sit there and talk about the offense's inefficiency as being a big part of the loss, and then think that and say that your quarterback was good. I just don't think he was.
I thought he had a lot of good throws. He only had a couple bad throws, but it is costly because they could have connected for a touchdown for sure with Diggs. And I'm sure he had a couple that he'd like to have back, but I don't know, man. It wasn't, I didn't see a lot of bad throws from Josh. I don't think he was the problem on the offense. Like, say, the Jets game, it was Josh Allen. Josh Allen was the problem. This game, I think it was more the offensive line, the inability to run the football. Second and third and long, it seemed like every time because they were getting nothing on the ground and they were putting themselves in bad position because of these penalties, which did have, that's why I say they have a factor in the game because it was putting the offense. I'd have to look at the stats on them in front of me, but I bet you the Bills had very few like 3rd and 4 or less. Like, I bet you the majority of their third downs were 6 yards or longer because they just weren't moving the ball with any success on 1st and 2nd down.
I think that'll probably prove to be true. And as I'm thinking a little bit about my comments about the quarterback just now, I'm going to put it like this. If there's any chance of this team competing for what their prize was coming into this season, they're going to have to outscore teams. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to need Josh Allen to just like be good. I'm going to need Josh Allen to be one of the best 3 quarterbacks in the NFL week in and week out, because we're going to have to outscore motherfuckers, especially in about a month from now. We're about to have a month, 3 weeks, where we could potentially win games with 24 points. Okay. Giants,
Sure.
Pats, Bucks, you'd like to think that maybe even as depleted as the defense is, but man, once that, those games, those back-to-backers against KC and Philly, Dallas, I mean, you're going to have to score.
At Miami again.
You're going to have to score with those teams. And I don't need my quarterback to be okay. All right. I need him to be, game-changing, man. I need him to be game-changing. That's the only prayer this team has of not, being exactly what I ultimately think they're going to be. And that is, a one and done in the playoffs.
These next 3 weeks, you brought that up. Look, the Bills are 3-2 right now, and they play the Giants at home on Sunday night. They play at New England, who it looks like they're ready to mail in their season. They look horrific today at home against the Saints. They're 1-4. And then you got Tampa on the Thursday night game, prime time again at home. So 2 of the next 3 games, prime time at home and at New England, mixed in, they're sandwiched in there. It'd be inexcusable to go. I'm not where you're at right now, but I will tell you this: if the Bills are not 6-2 headed into Cincinnati for that Week 9 game, then this season's over. They got to win these next 3 games. You got to win these next 3 games. You cannot lose.
They will lose one of these next 3 games.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
I don't buy it, man.
They will.
I don't buy it. Those are 3 terrible. Who are they losing to?
Look, I'm not going to pick which one right now. The front runner is Tampa. But unfortunately, I as much as I am willing to agree that the next 3 opponents are not good and we will be 7-point favorites against them. And I'm not saying we're about to lose 2 of 3. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm saying we're going to lose 1 of 3, and we're going to go into Cincy at 5-3, and then we're going to be 5-4. I'd be willing to go through it right now, and I'll tell you why the Bills will probably end up like a 2nd or 3rd wild card by the time all is said and done. They're not winning the division, and they're not winning a fucking Super Bowl. So just put that out there, put that on the clip or whatever, because that's what today meant.
I'm just not going to go that far yet, man. I'm just not. Whatever. Here's how I feel. I agree with you. The Bills off. Josh Allen has to be MVP level Josh Allen. That's 100% for sure. And then the other big thing over these next 3 weeks, besides not losing, which I disagree with you, they ain't losing one of these next 3 games. They're not losing one of these next 3 games. It's just not going to happen. But anyway, the other big thing that I need to happen is Von Miller needs to ramp up and be Von Miller that we need. Because You're going to need Josh Allen to play great, and you're going to need your pass rush with your front four to get home. It's got to happen. And you got great edge rushers right now, and you need Vaughn to be able to be ramped up. You're not beating Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes in the AFC, or maybe even Justin Herbert in the AFC if you can't pressure him with your front four. It's as simple as that. Last point about this, I really hope the Bills never play in London again. Not just because I don't want to get up on a Sunday morning or have to go to London and all this other travel bullshit. I don't want to see another NFL Network broadcast with Rich Eisen and Kurt Warner in the booth, man. Just that was a painful broadcast. The audio is fucked up a lot. No replays, limited replays when there were any. It was just terrible across the board. That's one of the worst broadcasts I can remember watching.
I love listening to Bills fans bitch about the broadcast.
It was fucking terrible.
Don't care. Look, I mean, when I don't
it didn't affect the game, but it affected my experience of watching the game.
Understand.
I kept going to my TiVo and having to rewind plays to watch them so I could actually see if it was a penalty or not.
Yeah,
fucking brutal.
I'm not that invested in it to do any rewinding, and frankly, half the time my kids are screaming in the background, and I'm just watching what's going on the TV. Anyways, I get it. A good broadcast is part of a good experience in watching the game. I don't put as much stock into it, and frankly, all right, I didn't even bother, and I have NFL Network, but I didn't even bother changing it to NFL Network because I thought it was hilarious that the Spanish feed was going over the Rich Eisen feed on CB or Fox or whatever for like the first half of the first quarter. It was, so and it like Chris Collinsworth too. Everybody's always bitching about Chris Collinsworth. Yeah, it's doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but I get it. I get it, and I'm sorry that it hurt your experience a little bit today.
Before we go, just briefly with the Sabres. And I'm going to have Joe Yurden is going to be on tomorrow's show. We're going to have a full Buffalo Sabres season preview with Joe. They did make moves over the weekend. We've talked about this plenty, you and I and Joe and I and whoever. For now, it's the Sabres looks like certain minus a trade or barred a trade over the next couple of days. The Sabres are going into the season with 3 goalies, so that they're going to do this again. I fucking hate it. But the good news is I thought for sure if they waive Stillman or Byro, that one or two or both those guys were going to get claimed. Neither did. So both are cleared. Both are in Rochester. So no damage done with the move to keep 3 goalies. I hate it. They got one more move to make still because they're one over the limit. But it's Matthew Savoy still on the roster, and I can't imagine him not starting the year on IR just to keep him up in Buffalo. I don't know your thoughts. Now, this was speculation, and now it's reality. They're going into the season with 3 goalies. I hate it. I hate it for the number 2 goalie. I want my number 2 goalie to be in a rhythm. I don't want UPL or Comrie to get a start once every 11 games.
I think it's temporary. All right. I think it's very temporary. I don't think it's going to play like that for much longer than October. But I'll say this: as much as I enjoy the talk about, kind of the minutia of the roster, those little things like, 3rd goalie, 7th defenseman versus 13th forward and Zach Benson and all those kind of things. From a broader perspective, if you Buffalo bros and babes out there hate my Bills take on the Super Bowl being over, you're going to really hate my Sabres take following that preseason last game performance the other day, because I think there's reason for tremendous concern coming out of that when the goalie that you're looking to hang your season on lets in 7. Every single defensive combination you've tried during the course of preseason has sucked, and you're super excited, as we should be. We talked about the excitement, but we're about to roll out Victor Olofsson and a rookie 13th overall pick into our forward group to start the season. There are fucking holes right now, and you should be worried about them.
I think Don Granato said after that Pittsburgh game on Friday that you referenced that Pittsburgh was more of in regular season mode where the Sabres were still kind of like in preseason mode. I'm not worried about Devin Levi giving up 7 goals. I will tell you one thing, and you brought up the defensive combinations have all sucked. I've talked to a couple like actual hockey people that are like,
What
really
do you mean
locked
actual
in.
It's as if to say I'm not an actual
You're not
hockey
locked
person.
in. You're a
Oh,
hockey
I'm
guy. You're not.
I'm not even remotely close.
No, but a couple locked in people are
That
really
was
following
that.
the Sabres. And you know what they've all said? Clifton has not looked good early. And you start to wonder, like maybe there's a reason why Boston didn't want to re-sign him, or maybe there's a reason why he was a healthy scratch down the stretch for some with Boston last year. I know we got high expectations and hopes. Joe Yurden is talking about how fans are going to love the guy, the way he plays a physical game. The fans are going to quickly like the guy, but I don't know, man. I've heard not good things during this preseason. What are you smiling for, man?
Kyer Clifton.
Somebody,
Kyer Clifton, baby, make the jersey right now.
Somebody compared Kyrie Elam to Chris Gratton. No, it wasn't Kyrie Elam. Fuck, I can't remember who it was. Remember Chris Gratton, a former Sabre?
Hell
They
yeah.
talked about he had all the physical attributes to be great,
Sure.
but just never put it together.
Did not.
That's Kyrie Elam. That's a pretty good comparison, man.
At least Gratton got on the ice and didn't shit himself the first opportunity that he got. All right. Kyrie Elam is, what a disaster of a day.
Yeah.
A disaster of a day.
It was a disaster of the day all around. A disaster in this city.
Can I complain about his postseason or his post game comments?
Who?
Kyrie Elam's.
Go ahead.
Well, I just, he said, and I understand he's probably hurting, man. All right. And I don't poke fun at people's faith. All right. I may not be a man of faith, but you know what I mean? But don't invoke God after you just played a shitty football game. Okay. I mean, God has a plan for you because you just fucking let up 10 receptions for 120 yards. You know who I need to have a fucking plan for, Kyrie Elam? It's not God. It's Brandon Beane. Okay. I'm sorry. It just rubbed me the wrong way. Again, I don't poke fun at anybody's faith. All right. I understand, but don't, I had no use for his post-game comments. Just own up to playing a shitty fucking football game already.
So before we go, I'm going to give you one opportunity to either further cement what you've been saying a lot during this podcast, or maybe walk it back to some extent anyway. And knowing you like I have for well over half your life, you are very, as am I. I think you're a knee-jerk reactor, a bit of a hothead at times. So I sit here and ask you on this podcast, you confidently can sit here and say today that you genuinely feel like the Bills' Super Bowl, legitimate, realistic Super Bowl aspirations came to an end with this loss today?
Yeah, I'm not walking that back.
No?
No chance.
Not there, man. I'm not there because I believe that Brandon Beane's going to do something. That I will say that's the only thing, because I don't think Matt Milano's replaceable, just like Trey White's not. I need to get to the trade deadline. They're playing 3 chump teams, and I'm pretty sure the trade deadline will be coming up by then too.
Can I reserve the right, though, to jump back on the bandwagon if I want? No, I mean, because nothing. Oh, I mean, you want to talk about getting underneath my skin? It's the people out there that are like, well, if you don't stay with them now. All right, when they don't go jumping back on the bandwagon when they're this or that. I'll jump back on the fucking bandwagon whenever I want. Okay, that's what a childhood of investing in a washed up Vince Ferragamo, Matt Kofler, and Joe fucking Dufek affords you. Okay, I can jump on and off the bandwagon whenever I feel like it. But right now I'm off. They ain't winning shit.
All right. That is going to do it for this episode. For Tone Pucks, Pat Moran, again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll be back. Sabres season preview with Joe Yurden tomorrow. Talk to you then.